Hey, everybody. This is Rip City Real Talk with Anthony Blaylock and Craig Moshkow. We're back again. We're going to recap some of the games this week, and we're going to talk about what we like and don't like. Season tipped off, which was exciting, if not painstaking for the first game, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. And we'll talk about this most recent Harden rumor, which is kind of weird, but we'll discuss that as well. So let me toss it over to my partner in crime here. Anthony, what'd you see?
All right, man. So we'll start off with some of the news that came out this week. And today we got a couple things that came up for our Blazers. The most unlikely bit of rumor was the James Harden rumor you said, where he added us and I believe the Celtics to his list of destinations for trade, which it's not going to happen. I mean, we'd have to move CJ and amongst other assets and things that we're probably not going to do. But it is still super cool to see a superstar of that caliber be like, "Yo, Portland, like that's where I want to go." I mean, we're like 10th on his list at this point. He'd probably take Charlotte, but it's still pretty cool that we're up there with some other contenders, and that's how we're seen now as some contenders in the league with guys like Dame, and stars are taking notice of that. You pair this up with the Giannis news that he wanted to come to Portland and team up with Dame, and that may have happened, like yada yada. Like you're starting to see some big time names throw our team into the mix of a preferred destination, whether it be trade or free agency. So pretty cool. And it makes you feel good if we do make some kind of a trade and it's a big blockbuster trade that the guys we bring back, if they're on a contract that's going to expire, that they may decide that they're going to continue to come back and sign an extension with us, etc. So yeah, I mean, pretty cool. I don't know about Harden necessarily. He's probably a better fit than CJ, but it's hard to have two ball dominant guards like that. CJ kind of fills his role super nicely with Dame. So you wonder about how that chemistry would work with Harden wanting to have the ball in his hands like he did in this last game and taking over instead of Dame, and what kind of chemistry issues you'd have there. But it's a fun thought to think about a guy like him pairing up with Dame in our backcourt.
Yeah, it's intriguing. I'm the biggest trade CJ guy there's ever been. I've been that way for probably 4 years now. I don't think Harden would help at all. I mean, I understand that he can dish, and I understand that he can probably do more with the ball than CJ can. But the thing about Dame and CJ is they're very interchangeable, but they're just unselfish, and that's something that nobody really points to. And I think Brooke Olzendam said it the other day. She said they don't care which one of them gets the shot at the end of the game. They don't care which one gets hot. They just and when CJ gets hot, Dame will just pass him the ball. I don't think Harden is that way. I think Harden wants his usage, right? And I think we all agree that he could be a chemistry breaker. As much I know he's a great player, and I know he'd be a great fit anywhere, but I do feel like he's not as big of an upgrade as maybe Blazer fans think he is.
No, I mean, you got to think Chris Paul left town, didn't work out with Westbrook.
Right.
You start to wonder, is that more on like Harden's chemistry issues with these other guards, or is that an issue just the guy they didn't have the right fits? But I'm sorry, I feel like Chris Paul's a fit in any system. He's a vet guy, but he should have been the perfect complement to them. And they had their best run when he was on that team, and they had those defenders around him. They let him go right after that. It's like they just didn't do it again. They make the playoffs because you have talent, but it's not enough talent to do anything in the playoffs. And I don't feel like it's an upgrade over what chemistry we have right now. And like you mentioned, that the chemistry, especially, we watched it. We just saw it in the Houston game. We watched an overtime where Dame had the ball in the first attempt to win the game. It basically errors a jump shot. I think he thought it was going to get contact, so he put it a little short. Fine. The very next play to win it in overtime, he has a chance to put up a shot that probably wasn't going to be very good. He turns around, flicks it out to CJ. CJ wins the game essentially for us. I mean, hits that three. So, when he's hot like that, those two play so well together that's the other thing you have to consider when you're making a trade for a big time name is how they're going to come in and fit with the team more so than just getting talent on the team. Typically, these guys figure it out, but you see it all the time where you have these superstar caliber guys on the same team and it doesn't fit, doesn't work. So it's a good point. Just kind of a fun bit of news. I mean, the important thing was that he put us on his list. So that's it's pretty exciting stuff when you think about it.
We made the list. The other thing I think real quick, bringing in Harden solves no defensive issues, right? Like we're one of the worst defending teams. He's not going to help with that in any way. In fact, he's probably the exact same or worse defender than CJ is. it makes no sense. I totally get what the Blazers or what Blazer fans would want, but these scenarios are more fun to talk about than they are realistic, right? So, all right, let's do the Jazz game. We tipped off at home, empty arena, and what happened?
Well, we talked about it in our last podcast. The number one thing was going to be perimeter defense and stopping the three. I mentioned that guys like Ingles and Bogdanovich, you can't let get hot.
Yeah.
Get Clarkson coming off the bench, nailing threes.
Yeah.
Mitchell's going to get his, but these other guys, you had to slow down and you had to get that length out there. And it just didn't work out. And I think a big piece of it, and I think they touched on it a little bit during the game, but a big piece of it was just chemistry.
Yeah.
You have a team where Conley and Ingles and Bogdanovich and all these guys have been there. I mean, Conley and Bogdanovich were there pretty much. They got traded during the trade deadline.
Yep.
At least Bogdanovich did. But they got to play the entire bubble. They got to go into their playoff run. These guys had a little bit of the season before the hiatus came to get some chemistry down. And the one key addition they make this year is they bring back Favors to shore up the defensive and offensive big on the bench, a guy that's played in that system for years before going to New Orleans. So they just bring back a familiar face that knows the system, knew what he was supposed to do. And you just kind of saw us scrambling a lot. You didn't see us getting guys in the positions on defense, playing through the screens appropriately, switching off. You had a lot of missed shots. Dame didn't have his best game. That's always going to be a problem, but I don't think it was going to matter. I mean, you give Dame 20 more points, we still lose by 20. I mean, it takes away from other guys. Nobody was really on. It was just a weird vibe. And it's tough because that's only our second home loss to open up the year, 2 in a row now after going like 14 or something straight. We had one of those records that was kind of fun, and the no fans doesn't help. It just seems like a stagnant game. And when a team with that kind of chemistry gets rolling, you don't have the energy during those big plays, and these guys start to kind of mentally get out of a game. That is hard to recover from, and I just think you kind of saw us get behind big early, and you just couldn't recover. It's just one of those situations with chemistry beat our lack of chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you saw something that you see out of Dame sometimes, where in the first half he tries to get other people involved, and sometimes that works and guys roll, right? Like we've seen that in the past where Dame gets a couple guys going, CJ gets hot, Gary Trent Jr. will hit a couple shots. In this game, I think he needed to be more aggressive, and then we fell behind. The other thing that happened big in this game was COVID only allowed us to have 4 preseason games. And in those preseason games, we weren't really able to work out all the kinks that you needed to work out with Derrick Jones Jr., Robert Covington, this first unit, plus the second unit, which is that Enes Kanter, Melo. They didn't really get a chance to develop their rhythm. And you could tell, I think they were a big negative, like a big minus at the end of the box score night. You could just tell they weren't cohesive. That will get better. I think that we can identify things we like and don't like, and we can continue to talk about this Utah game, but I think we saw it get better in the Houston game last night.
We did. And that was that's one of those things we're going to discuss, because we thought coming in that the strength is eventually going to be our bench.
Yes.
I still think we have a good bench, at least talent-wise. It's going to be a matter of none of these guys have played with each other. I mean, other than maybe Anthony and Gary Trent in little stints, like these guys don't know where to line up with each other. They don't know where the defensive rotations are going to be. They're already not as talented as the starters. And your bench you're playing against is Favors, Ingles, Clarkson. Like, you're playing against a bench with these guys that have played with each other. They know what they wanted to do. And when a team got hot like that, when these bench guys come in with that kind of momentum and a lead and they can play a little more free, a recipe for disaster there. And I think it was already kind of a losing battle with, like you said, with Dame not scoring in the first half, trying to get people involved. And even when he's trying to score, when he's not hitting his shots and he's inefficient with his shots, it just you get behind too soon. So I think you're right. The bench is going to get better. We haven't had the preseason, we haven't had the training camp. I mean, my goodness, free agency and all that stuff happened 2, 3, 4 weeks right before the preseason was going to start. I mean, we're right there. You get maybe a week or 2 of practice, and then it's preseason, and then boom, your first game action against a team like the Jazz. I was hoping they play a little better, but it is what it is. I mean, it's an opening game where you're still trying to figure things out. We saw a lot of positives come out of it. We saw plenty of negatives that, again, when we get into the Houston game, I think we saw corrected to an extent.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of positivity going forward.
Sure. Okay, so what's something that you liked and didn't like in the Jazz game that kind of either could scare you if it was a long-term trend?
Well, my number one takeaway as far as what I liked was
Mhm.
Enos, and I think Enos in both games. I mean, I'm going to carry this over to the Houston game as well,
Yeah.
but I think watching his efficiency as a big, I mean, I think he went 6 of 6 in the
Mhm.
Utah game. I'd have to look at the specific number. It was something like that, but
Yep.
efficiency. There was a couple times on defense where he made the first play, kind of hustled, stopped a couple of attempts at the basket, but then they got out of position. They got the rebound real quick and threw it back up. And you're going to have that with him. That's why he's not a
Sure.
starting center for us. He's not,
Yep.
he's never been known as a defensive guy, but I like the hustle I see for him. He's trying to get in there and make the play.
Mhm.
Maybe not as good at recovering from it, but
Yeah.
I still think the offensive efficiency is there. I mean, you see him hit a hook shot over Gobert, and you're just like, wow, they would make the highlight reel.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff that he can do in one-on-one situations against even some of the best defensive centers. He had another really nice inside spin move
Yep.
on what's his face Favors, and it was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I like to see out of him. So that was great for me. That was one of those things. As the bench starts to figure things out, it's nice to know that we have a reliable guy down low. I can do a little bit of that cleaning up. That can be efficient when he gets the ball in his hands, and then the rest of it will hopefully start to revolve around that, and you start
Yeah.
to see it kind of go outwards, and these other guys start to get better.
Yep.
So that being said, I think we focus on the bench for my negative thing that
Mhm.
I didn't like, and that was Carmelo. I mean, I was talking about him coming into the year. I really think that he's one of those guys that could potentially be a six man of the year candidate because he's a veteran scorer who should be able to take advantage of, a lot of these guys that are coming on the bench trying to guard him, even with his
Yep.
age and his lack of defense and being a little slower. You still think that sometimes that technique is going to pay off, and it hasn't. It's unfortunately he's not hitting these shots. I like what they're giving him. They're giving him
Yep.
one-on-one looks against these guys,
Yep.
but he's just not hitting the shots. And I don't know if that'll, it's just part of the chemistry and it's the mental side of us being blown out. It was kind of, man, I'm going to do what I have to do to try to get the ball and not taking his time. Or if it's really just him just being a little slower and those legs not jumping up as much as they used to, and whatever it is. And I think time will tell. I liked him in the bubble last year. I still think he'll be all right. But when you're in those situations where that lead is still within, 10 points, 8 points, 12 points, you get a couple stops, you get back into a game, that bench unit's in there, to have that ball slow down when it gets in his hands, and it's just like LaMarcus used to do. It's just you have a guy in the corner iso balling trying to get a jump shot. When
Mhm.
you don't make those, it just slows everything down. It kind of slows the flow of the game, and that
Mhm.
benefited the Jazz. It never really got other guys involved. You never really got to see Gary Trent get the ball in his hands and get hot.
Mhm.
You didn't see really any of that from Hood and his limited minutes. It was just tough to get those other guys rolling on the bench. And when you are playing bad defense against guys like Ingles who are out there just popping threes off, it's a recipe for disaster when you're not getting points on one end and they're getting 2 to 3 points on the other end. That lead goes from that 8, 10, 12 to 16, 18, 20. And now your starters are supposed to come back in
Yeah.
fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah. Melo was that was interesting. I think he was. I don't know a lot about what he was promised in coming back this year, right? Like
Right.
he was good in the bubble, and we all loved him because we relied on him offensively. I don't think we're going to rely on him offensively. I hope he can take advantage of the good matchups, but I do think him and Ennis in a defensive that defense is going to be really rough. Like we're just not going to stop anybody down low. So we have to score with that second unit. Those are the guys you're going to put out there, and Melo's a ball stopper in a way where that offense stops flowing, like you said. So I think we addressed that a little bit in the second game against Houston. It got better, right? But yeah, that was terrifying as a Blazer fan.
Yeah, that was something to work on for sure. I mean, in
Yeah.
the Houston game, we'll touch on it. I didn't really see the bench much. They weren't really
Mhm.
out there. The minutes were kind of iffy.
Yep.
They just really went, and I think it had to do with stopping Harden probably, but they
Yep.
really went with a lot of Derek Jones, even with the fouls he was picking up. But
Yep.
he's going to get those playing the kind of defense he's going to play, and we'll touch on that in just a sec. But I do think those are the couple things I want to see get better
Yes.
and stay the same. So as far as positives and negatives, and we did see Enes carry over to the Houston game being very efficient, getting offensive rebounds. So I think we'll kind of transition now to Houston, talk about that. Jazz
Yep.
game's done. We saw some things we need to work on. Perimeter defense was big. And
Mhm.
I think we saw a lot of those pluses carry over to Houston. So as we
Yep.
talk about Houston, obviously not the type of win you want. You don't want an overtime win in a very close call situation against a team with 9 players because half their starters were out with COVID and
That was weird.
or getting haircuts, whatever they were doing. But it's still a win. I mean, it's still a win against one
Yep.
of the best offensive talents in the league.
Hmm.
and they still have decent defenders. I mean, it's not like PJ Tucker's a scrub. House is actually a great defender. That's why he's in Houston. So they're good, but we'll kind of touch on that. And I think the carryover was just that Enes looked good and Carmelo didn't in the bench again.
Yeah. Well, so defensively, we looked a lot more cohesive. We looked a lot more connected. Covington and Derek Jones are starting to do this thing. And I don't know if you caught it in the game where a lot of times they're communicating on switches in ways I've never seen Portland
Which is,
defenders do. Did you
yes,
see that?
I noticed it a lot. I noticed
Yeah.
that when one could be on hard and the screen would come, the
Yeah.
other one would just
They'd
spread over
switch.
and start taking them.
Seamless, right? Like totally seamless. They don't have to, there's no juxtaposition. There's no, I got him. It was just literally seamless. And that was beautiful. When you're talking about offense, it was kind of typical Blazers when you're talking about offense with a few additions. I do feel like Nurk was rusty. Do you feel like there's something going on with Nurk? Like he's just like trying to get the train rolling.
I've noticed it in both games.
Mm-hmm.
It's, his minutes have been there. He looks like he's
Yeah.
fine. They're not worried about that. But I think we're getting what I'm seeing a lot of is the Nurk when he first came here, that first year and a half,
Yeah.
really, where he seems to be rushing things a little bit. Like either whether it's on the drive, he's not controlling the ball properly because he's already thinking about trying to go up with it, or
Yes.
even when he has a good pass down low and he turns, it's almost like again he's throwing those shots up quick. He's not
Mm-hmm.
taking his time, and I think he's missing a lot of these easier shots that we're accustomed to him kind of making down low.
Yep.
Because he's getting back to that quick little look and shoot really fast instead of figuring out what the defense is, finding the basket, and getting a good quality hook shot or whatever kind of shot he's going to take, a layup. And then it concerns me a bit because I
Mm-hmm.
don't see any health restrictions. I think it's probably a mental side of things. I think he's getting kind of beat on defense a little more than we're accustomed to seeing him. He's not quite playing there. And I think that's just getting used to when to switch and cover guys when you have Covington and Jones out there. I think in his mind, he doesn't have to do some of the same things on defense that he was required to do. And
Yeah.
he does. And I just think there's still that communication issues that you're working on when to get back. But I feel like it carries over sometimes with him. I don't know if it's on the offensive side. If he gets beat defensively or something goes wrong, he goes down there and it's almost like he tries to make up for it.
Yeah.
And there was an interview with him recently, and he was just saying, like, I got to get better. I got to improve. I got to make sure I'm available. So he's concerned about his health when he doesn't have to be. There's just some mental stuff going on with him.
Yep.
And I just feel the offensive side of what we're used to getting from Nurk is not there. I mean, he missed 2 back-to-back free throws. I mean, he's a decent free throw shooter for a big, and
Yeah.
that's tough to see. Just all around, his game seems a little slow. And it's the beginning of the year. They had a very quick turnaround. You're still getting used to that team chemistry. So I don't want to make it a big deal yet. But as we get into the next couple weeks and we start talking about it, I mean, there's going to be some matchups that he's going to have to do a lot better on. Maybe not the initial game against the Lakers coming up, but Golden State doesn't have anybody I feel can stop him. Draymond's not going to play on him most likely.
Yep.
It just feels like you're going to see some of these situations where he has to pick that up. And something to monitor closely if you're a fan is how quickly he puts those shots up and how much in control of his offensive game that he has, whether it be the handling of the ball when it's passed to him or just a turnaround jumper or things like that. So yeah, I'm definitely there with you. I definitely noticed it, and I'm hoping that gets better because we need him to be that consistent third scoring threat down low.
Yeah, he and Dame in the pick and roll is going to be crucial for us offensively. The other guys need to hit their shots and do what they do, but Nurk is really kind of the third key to our team here. And when he is off, we look off. I mean, the first unit can struggle at times, both offensively and defensively. I think something that we could do, and I don't know, what do you think about maybe letting Nurk play through the post a little more? Like maybe we just give him some entry passes and just kind of let him get comfortable in there and let him pass out of the, from the elbow or the key or wherever he wants to work. Like maybe we just incorporate him a little more and Stotts leans on him instead of making him be a helper. What do you think of that?
Reactive player. Yeah. It's kind of use the analogy of like a young quarterback or a backup quarterback in an NFL game. When you get in there, the key to getting those guys going is to kind of have a couple short passes, right? Get their confidence, get their rhythm down. And then you start working in the rest of your offense in a football game. And I think it's similar with basketball at times. You have to let some of these guys just get comfortable, find an offensive scheme that's going to fit them. Like you said, give them some post looks, let them hit a guy, let them use that size, turn around and get a nice looking hook. Do something where it's not so much pick and roll, which is our strength, granted, but it's also while he's struggling and you're seeing him catch that ball and put up bad shots or mishandle a ball and then lets the defense recover. And you need to do something to get him going offensively, get him to feel a little more comfortable with some
Agreed.
slower shot attempts and take some more pressure off of our guards to really
Yeah.
see him get back to himself, because it's always going to go through Dame and CJ. I mean, that's just
Mhm.
what it is. But they're going to get doubled a lot. They're going to
Yeah.
get trapped. The guys are going to play them hard. And he's the guy that helps alleviate that by making a pass to him and letting him go down. Teams have to start watching that pick and roll, and it takes him away from being able to double. I will say one thing I've noticed with him, though, that should be very encouraging from fans is his passing. That looks like the Nurk of old. That
Yep.
is the Nurk that's coming out of that Denver system playing behind Jokic, where it was a lot of bigs making passes.
Yeah.
And I love that. He had a couple of assists last night, getting the ball to Dame and CJ down low for some easy layups. It was beautiful. I mean, being
Yes.
able to see that kind of ball up top and then hitting those guys, that is what he did before the injury. That is what
Yep.
struggled a little bit in the bubble. And that is what we're seeing him get back to. So once he
Yeah.
gets his down low game rolling again, I mean, you're going to get back to having the Bosnian beast, the guy that's a little bit of every asset of the game, the passing, the defense, the low post scoring. So that was great. And I think that side of his game, he should feel comfortable. We should feel good about that. But I definitely think just slowing things down, getting in the ball a little more early in the game. If you look at the games, I swear, all of last year, most of the games would start off with Nurk would get 6, 8 points in the first
Yep.
quarter, first
Yep.
half, because they go to him 2, 3 times, get him going.
Yeah.
And then that ball would spread around, because that's one of the reasons Dame was such a big second half scorer and never a first half scorer, is because
Yeah.
he would utilize guys like Nurk early to get them involved, to get them heated up. And that way, at the end of the games, they kind of figure out their matchups. They figure out what the defense is doing
Mhm.
to them. And we're just not seeing that early. So I do agree. I think that would be a great call to get him the ball more.
It's tricky because you want Dame to get guys involved, but you don't want him to become passive, because then he falls back a little bit. And Dame's a superstar, right? He can flip the switch. Uh, I do want to see Nurk get more involved. I love seeing that lob to Derek Jones, that cut. That's something that's been missing from our offense for a while. And I think that Giles, Nurkic, Dame, CJ, all of them need to be looking for cutters, because all of them should be able to hit those guys and kind of get the offense opened a little bit. I think something that we saw a lot of is in the bubble and in years past, in Blazers years past, you see a lot of ISO. And ISO is great, right? It's the NBA now. It's your guy. It's your best player on my best player, and I'm gonna win because I can get a shot anytime I want. But gosh, those cutters they just help open and unlock things a lot. So I hope we continue to see those things.
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think we will. I think when Nurk gets back to making those passes, when you have the athletic wings like we do,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to make those cuts. They're going to be able to handle the ball, and they're going to get up with their length and get a good
Yeah.
looking shot. And we saw a couple of times where both Jones and Covington mishandled the ball. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't think they're expecting it. And that's part of the chemistry. That's part of knowing when Dame's going to throw you that ball,
Yeah.
when you need to be looking for it, because, there's cutting to the rim and there's cutting to get around and get open to a corner for a
Yeah.
three, and just trying to play through your offensive play. And I think a lot of times, sometimes you get into that trying to focus on what your play is supposed to be and not
Mm-hmm.
really focusing on where Dame and CJ are when they're going to get you the ball. That is part of chemistry. That is
Yeah.
part of the stuff that's eventually going to flow, and you're going to start to see them make those grabs because they're going to expect it. It's going to be like a wide receiver running a slant in football. They're waiting for that ball. And I think it's going to be much improved. We saw a lot of improvement already in Houston. And that was a game that we needed. They were limited on guys. They were limited on minutes, fouls. They had to start playing a certain way. And even though they played us super hard,
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of game for us to start building that chemistry. And you notice a lot of it. You notice a lot of, like you said, the switching between Jones and Covington. Those are the positives that we need to take away. You really saw some of the chemistry step up.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about the upcoming games and briefly, but I
Yeah.
don't think you're going to expect to see too much in the Lakers game, because that's just going to be a tough game altogether. But the Clippers game is something that I really want to see us continue to do that, because they're a smaller team where you can take
Mm-hmm.
advantage of their forwards and their
Yep.
guards, and continue to see those switching and those defensive schemes move around. These guys be able to play like that is going to be key. So a lot of
Definitely.
positive takeaways there.
Yeah. Okay, so what kind of questions do you have after these two games and with the upcoming two games, which we'll get to in a minute?
So questions, I mean, let's see. Realistically, what is the one thing that you noticed that we need to improve on with our bench play? Because we didn't see a lot of our bench guys last night. So what is one thing that can get them out there a little bit more and take advantage of a situation where a team might have limited numbers with the COVID season coming up and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I saw last night that I hadn't seen in a while, Enos was chasing guys off the line. I mean, that was really, like, it was kind of fun to watch, actually. I was always watching for the defensive battle with the bench, because in the first game, they did awful. I mean, they were just terrible on defense. We were just getting lit up. Like you said, Clarkson came in and he just went crazy. And we don't have a legit defender. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. is amazing, right, on defense, and he does things that you don't even notice. If you have to watch him go 1v1 in order to notice it, but he didn't get very many minutes in that game last night. I think Hoodie's got to play really good defense. He's got to step up. But the biggest thing is just it's activity on defense, and it's chasing guys down, and it's switching, and it's talking and communicating. I think you saw more of that with Houston. The question is, was it because Houston doesn't really have, I mean, they had 9 guys last night, right? So their bench isn't exactly strong. They don't have a Lou Williams coming off the bench to light you up.
Right.
So I think my question is, was that because of the opponent, or is that something that we're going to be able to sustain a little bit?
I think it had a lot to do with the opponent too. I think one of the reasons we didn't have those bench guys play as much is because Houston had to throw their starters back in so quick.
Yep.
To keep in that game. I mean, Christian Wood couldn't sit out even with fouls. Harden was in playing a ton of minutes, and you just can't have a Gary Trent or a Hood trying to guard Harden, and you can't have a Cantor and Carmelo trying to guard Christian Wood, who looked great.
Yep.
So I think putting guys in like, Nurk and Derek Jones and Covington and getting those extra minutes to play on the matchups to try to stop their 2 pieces that were the only really threat scoring wise. Is one of the reasons we didn't see a lot of the bench last night.
Right.
But I do think you're right. I think the movement's there. I saw a couple great plays from Hood. I mean, he had a deflected ball that turned into a turnover that we got points off of, and we saw him take that charge. And those little tiny things are going to be what you want to see. I mean, they mentioned on the broadcast, Hood was smiling, he's fist bumping, I mean, that's the energy you need to start seeing come up. And as those guys get to play more, it'll be better. It's kind of a shame we didn't get to see him a lot last night because they're going to need those minutes. But I just think them having to bring their guys back in so fast, it forced us to make more subs. And bring our guys back in. I mean, you saw Derek Jones play a ton of minutes. Covington was out there a ton of minutes, which is great for us because we have length on the floor, but at the same time, it doesn't help our bench. So, I mean, I would agree with you. I think energy, chasing the ball down, starting to kind of get some chemistry going to be able to trust that your guys going to make up for you when you run away from the paint and do things like that is going to be.
I think Ant hit some big shots last night. We talk about him all the time as a guy that we kind of need, and not, we don't need him to come in and dominate on offense, but we need him to hit some shots, right? And that's what he did last night. He hit 3 really big shots. I thought his defense wasn't atrocious. He was okay. The thing with Ant, and this is what I talk about a lot of time, he's got this length and this athleticism that neither of our other guards possess. So I know we only really have 3 guards, right? I mean, you can say that Gary Trent Jr. is a guard, but he's kind of a wing. When you're talking about like point guards, Dame and CJ are 6'4", right? And they don't have really long wingspans, but man, Ant's got some stuff that's like, he could be a superstar. So he played really well last night, and shouts to him. The second unit Stotts is still tweaking with, right? We could see that he was trying to figure out what the heck to do. So my question to you is, why no Harry Giles?
It's just minutes. I mean, they're going to give Carmelo his opportunities on offense. Giles is still raw. I don't think the preseason is really anything to get super excited about. It never is. And he came out and looked great against the Kings for a couple stretches there. But at the end of the day, he's still raw. He's young. He could be a decent athletic forward center for us, sure. But I mean, we look at the efficiency of Cantor. We talked about it both games. He's hitting his shots. He's doing things on offense right now that was really the only bright spot of our bench in the first 2 games. Realistically, I mean, I'll agree. Anthony last night looked great. I mean, he hit a couple contested threes. He looked confident, which is another big thing that we're not seeing. I think there was we talked about the pressure that was on the last couple, really his rookie year and last year, like to come in and be that guy, especially last year, and it just didn't work out. This year, I think it's a little more free play that we're seeing. He's feeling a little bit better about himself, and that's great. But realistically, Cantor is going to be our backup big, and he looks like he deserves to be our backup big. The only real opportunity Giles would have is if he comes in and plays over Carmelo. And right now, Stotts and the team seems committed to Carmelo to get that role. And I do think we're going to see that turn into something a little bit better. Realistically, I just need to see him hit some of those ISO shots that we need to see him. When he starts getting some of those buckets to drop, that's going to force teams to have to double him, run out to him, help a little bit more, and that's going to open up a lot more perimeter shooting for guys like Trent to get open shots. So that'll come. But Giles, I just, I know there's a lot of fans that liked him in preseason, and I think he's athletic and he's young, and there's a lot of potential talent there. But
Mhm.
this is not a team that was really willing to bet on potential talent right now. We made a lot of moves this year because we are in a championship window in our minds.
Mhm.
You have Dame and you have CJ going into their extensions now, probably the last big extension they're going to get. The next couple of years are all about them. It's not about developing. And I think that's one of the reasons you're going to see Ant, coming in spurts. But if he's not playing good, he's going to disappear, and CJ is going to run that second unit, kind of like we saw in Utah. We saw a lot of CJ getting out there and playing with the second unit, getting assists and trying to get that second unit going. Didn't work out, but you're going to see a lot of that. So Anthony's going to have to play really good because he's one of those guys. We're not playing on potential right now. You have to earn your minutes. And unless Carmelo really starts to struggle multiple weeks in a row, I just don't see them moving the Giles anytime soon.
It'd probably take an
if his
injury to see
injuries are
significant. Yeah.
right, exactly. You got Corona, you got to worry about. You're going to have those little things that will come in
Sure.
that might give them some opportunity, but it's not going to be meaningful minutes until something like that happens.
Yep. Okay, so we got the two LA teams. So we're going to LA. We're going to play the Lakers tomorrow. Then we're going to play the Clippers after that. What do you foresee for us, and what do you want to see out of this team?
Lakers have been inconsistent. So you really want to take advantage of the mismatches you're going to get on their bench. They have a lot of big names, but a lot of old names that you can hopefully come in and score on and keep games close. I mean, you got to assume Davis is going to get his, and you got to assume LeBron is going to get theirs.
Yeah.
Like they're going to go out there and they're going to get their points. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Jones. He's thin. I think LeBron can push him around. It worries me a little bit, but he's got length. LeBron's not going to look to shoot very much. So your perimeter defense lengthwise isn't going to help you. It's about being able to stop him from getting to the lane. And we struggled with that against Harden. I mean, Harden basically did whatever he wanted, got to the free throw line 20 times last night. So that worries me. If you put Covington on him, great. That's fine and dandy. But then who's going to handle Davis? I mean, you put Derek Jones on Davis and try to slow him down with more of a post game where he's not going to drive as much. Do you put Nurk on him, who's consistently been beat by Davis in the past?
A lot.
It's worrisome. I mean, Davis is going to be our mismatch issue. He always is for really any team. LeBron, you just got to try to keep out of the paint. It's the same thing we talked about with Harden. It's just limiting what they can do, trying to force them into a game that's not their game. Make LeBron make those passes. Try to get somebody else on that team to have to beat you. It's going to be a tall task, but I think if you can play the defensive side and Covington and Jones start to get better and better, and they continue that switching thing that they've been doing really well, and Nurk continues to block up that paint, you have yourself a shot. You're always going to have a shot. They did not get better defensively out of the guard position. In fact, you could argue they got worse. Schroeder looks great. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's going to be a scary threat for a scoring guard for them. They didn't have a scoring guard last year. They had some defensive guys. They had Rondo. That's great and fine. Schroeder poses a threat because he can score. He can hit the three. He's a good assist guy. He's not going to lock Dame down defensively, and they don't have the Avery Bradleys and the Caldwell Popes. Even though he's not going to start, or if he does play minutes because of the matchup, I still think CJ and Dame can get theirs. It's a matter of just slowing down Davis and LeBron, not giving up too many fouls, not giving them free throws, and not getting your guys in the foul trouble and forcing your bench to have to play more than they need to. So it's concerning, but I think that's the big key is really just stopping the points in the paint. I mean, really, if we can hold them underneath 40 points in the paint, I think you have a really good shot of winning that game. Force them to shoot threes, even if you're going to give up free throws, fine, but don't give them the easy baskets. And I think that's going to be key for us. That'll be my one takeaway.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think they have the defensive stoppers that they had in the past, and that was what honestly scared me the most about the Lakers was they had really good defense, and the Clippers too, right? They had these great defenders. So, which by the way, Anthony Davis is out tonight with his calf. He might miss that game tomorrow, and that would be actually huge for us because I agree. I think Covington is your best bet to cover Anthony Davis. Nurkic has been burned by him a lot in the past, and the problem with Portland was we couldn't switch anybody. Like if let's say, for example, you liked a matchup. I don't even know who would have been our best defender last year on AD, but if it was Nurkic, when they switch, we're toast, right? So this year we should have more switchability. So I think we'll play them tougher.
Yeah.
And then Clippers are getting blown out really bad right now, but there's no Kawhi.
It was 77-27 at halftime. Kawhi or not,
Close game.
that is not appropriate.
Close
Their
game.
bench didn't hit a shot. I didn't see the
Yep.
specific numbers, but I know it was like 0 for 15 attempts or something. Their bench. Nobody's scoring right now. Lou Williams was 0 for 4. They just didn't have anything. And then, when Paul George is the primary guy on offense, they're throwing doubles at him right now and they're stopping him. It's not going to happen with us because they'll probably have Kawhi in there.
Yep.
I feel better about them. I
Yeah.
think that Derek Jones and Covington are going to go on George and Kawhi.
Mhm.
They're going to use that length. It's going to be good for us. I think that perimeter and that length is what slows them down. They seem to struggle against better defenders.
Yeah.
They're great defenders themselves, and they're going to go on CJ and Dame because they're not going to worry about Derek Jones and Covington hitting the three. They'll throw Ibaka out there, or they'll throw Batum or whoever they want to put on them. They still have Patrick Beverly. He'll probably play a little bit on Dame, of course. So I worry about scoring on them, but at the same time, they're just one of those teams that I think we can get a lot of stops on. And I think that's going to be good for us as we start to get into our fast break points. I mean, you're looking at our guys like Derek Jones last week. I mean, being able to cut and finish at the rim and do the dunks and all these little things, that should be very beneficial to us. And that's what we're going to have to do. My key to that game would just be winning the fast break points, getting stops on them, getting rebounds after you force a bad shot, and then get on the other side and go quick before they can recover and get those guys in the defensive sets to slow you down. So looking forward to that one. I think that's a really good matchup for us. I think as far as what we're going to see from our defense, what we've been wanting to see from the additions we brought in, this is one of those games where you're playing two of the premier wing players in the league.
Yeah.
And this is what these guys are brought in to do, is to stop these types of players. And this is it. I mean, this is going to be a really fun test for us. I don't know about the Lakers. I predict a loss there. I still just don't think we're going to have enough to throw at them. Unless Davis doesn't play, then who knows? Kuzma's no scrub. He'll probably start. But still, I worry about the Lakers just because of their physicality. And we're still figuring out the chemistry and the switching and kind of getting used to playing with each other. The Clippers, I think we can get a W in. I do. I think that we'll slow them down enough to get a win there. So I project a 1-1 on this little LA road trip, which will put us at 500 for the year, which isn't bad. I mean, considering some of the top Western teams are still losing. Denver's 0-2. Utah just lost. I mean, there's a lot of teams out there right now that are all still trying to figure things out early in the year. So it'll be beneficial to us. I like that matchup.
I do too. I think Nurk and Cantor can take advantage of the Clippers' small lineups, right? They don't have anybody that can really bang with those two. So I'd like to see the bigs get going. I want to see Nurk get his 20 points in one of these games. I hope so, man. Like, he's really a key, and that's something we've been missing with the first unit. The second unit, I think it's just, can Melo hit the shots? Like, is Melo going to start hitting the shots? And if he's not, is he going to back off the ISO? Is he going to start doing more spot up shooting? If in the bubble he was doing more spot up shooting and he was hitting more threes and he was shooting more threes, do more of that. Don't the elbow jumper back down to the basket. I mean, I love zigging when the league is zagging, right? I love that, but we got to shoot some more threes with that second unit, and the ball needs to move more.
Because, you got to remember, in the bubble he started, he was playing with Dame and CJ, guys who were controlling the ball, finding him. He was much more opportunistic. Now it's going through him, and he's just not hitting the shots. They don't look bad. I mean, he's getting good one-on-one opportunities. Guys aren't contesting them very well. He just doesn't have. I don't know if it's the legs. We talked about it. We don't know. He's not hitting them. It's going to be a matter if he can start hitting them, but I agree. The second unit needs to start finding some more flow. Rodney's got to get involved offensively a little bit more. Gary's got to start getting the good looks for three. Put him in the corner. I don't care. Find a way to get him the ball and let him hit some threes, because they need to keep leads close if we are losing, and hopefully try to build on them. We should have a better bench than most teams when those guys start to get back into the action. They start to work on their bench chemistry. There's not a lot of teams that I think can stop us, but I mean, I agree with you. I think the bigs need to get more involved.
Yep. Stay afloat, get a win, take it one day at a time. I think the Lakers is a really tough matchup. AD playing or not playing is going to be huge for that. I do think our guards should score on LA or on the Lakers. I think our bigs should play better against the Clippers. So LA. All right, man. Well, anything else before we wrap?
Yeah, one last little bit. I'm curious what you think about the Blazers doing their qualifying extensions on Anthony and Little. So it was the big news that dropped today. Not big news, but when you think about whether or not you're going to keep the guy around and how you feel about him, that's one of the things that you look at. I mean, they didn't do the same qualifying offer with Zach. They decided to let him hit free agency. So bringing Little in, I mean, he's one of those weird wing positions right now where we're kind of
Yep.
nicely got a lot of depth at. Yeah, we're deep. So I don't know where he's going to get his minutes down the road, but they still like him enough to keep him after this year.
Mhm.
So this will be basically they're going to keep him for his third year is what they exercise. His contract was a 2-year plus an option. They picked up the option on that, and Anthony obviously will finish out this year and go into his 4th year with us next year before they look into whether or not they're going to make him a restricted free agent or not. So we need to see more of
Yeah.
Anthony, I think, to really gauge whether or not this is a good decision. I mean, obviously, it's always good to keep your promising rookies with a lot of potential. Keep them on. Their contracts are cheap. So it's not really overly surprising that we decided to do this. It's more surprising that we decided not to with Zach. But I don't know. It's just interesting. What are your takes on the 2 young guys keeping around for another year?
Yeah, I think two things. There's 2 reasons why you signed them to that extension. Number one, Stotts and company are liking what they're seeing in practice, right? Because with Little, the dude doesn't play enough for us to really get a gauge on him as fans. So he's playing well in preseason and he's doing the things in practice that they're asking him to do. I thought you had a great point earlier with Ant about confidence. Last night was probably the most confidence and the most swag I've ever seen him have. He looked like any time the ball was leaving his hands, it was going in the basket.
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly, we were not big fans of his when we drafted him because we feel like we had other needs at the time. But Ant to me seems like long term, he's going to be a part of this Blazers team, whether it be the backup or taking more and more minutes on as our third guard. I think he's probably one of the most crucial elements to our success over the next 3 to 5 years. Besides the starting unit, I think he's our most crucial, the sixth man, if you will. Little, I think they just want more out of him, and I think you can't have too many, small forward, power forward combo guys. And he's just cheap. Like he's just so cheap that
It's
we just
worth
hang
the
on to him.
money right now to keep him around for another year. Yeah, because what are
Yeah,
you gonna do by letting him walk? You don't accomplish anything. And we got Hood has his injury that you always gonna keep in the back of your mind. What if he re-aggravates it? Okay,
yep,
Derek Jones and Covington are here for a while. We got them on decent deals. But Carmelo's gone. There's another wing forward type guy that you're potentially going to lose after this year if you decide not to bring him back.
yep.
So it's just good to have that depth. And he showed promise his rookie year. I mean, there were
Mhm.
definitely some rookie mistakes, but he hit a couple threes. He played decent defense. He hustled. You want that out of him. Before the foot injury, I mean, he was playing like a good, athletic, decent wing. I mean, nothing mind blowing, but good enough
Yeah,
to where I think you want to keep him around in case injuries or COVID hits. A guy that you can feel confident, like, yeah, let's have him around here. Let's put him back in and let him go out and hustle and play.
yeah.
So smart on both accounts. I really think we need to see more out of Anthony. He didn't play in the Utah game, so this is the first time we got to see him. And
Mhm.
I think it's really important that we continue to see him have that confidence, take advantage of good matchups and good opportunities to score, and be efficient with those opportunities. And if anything comes out of last night, that was one of those things we can take away is trying to let Dame and CJ get a little more rest because we couldn't do that last year. We had to play those guys a little more than we probably wanted to. Anthony fell out in the bubble and never really got a chance to get back in just because
Mhm.
Stotts didn't trust him in the rotation. So, yeah,
Yep.
pretty cool. I mean, it's good for them. It's a good deal for us to keep him around. I think Zach's played his final tune. We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, we'll discuss it more throughout the year, but those 2 definitely deserve another chance to stay on the team and work their way up through practice and try to earn those minutes.
I mean, during this whole O'Shea and Stotts era, they've been very good talent evaluators. They watch these guys in practice. I can't remember the last time we let a guy go who wasn't in their prime, right? Like obviously we traded Batum, LaMarcus left of his own accord,
Absolutely.
and Wes, right? But Wes had just blown his Achilles out. I can't
Yeah.
think of a guy who left and became a legitimate starter in the NBA from our system. I mean, there's role players, but we're good at keeping these guys in house. I mean, if we'd let
Clyde
CJ
Drexler.
walk off his rookie deal and now he's this amazing shooting guard. That's the thing that gets lost in probably outside of Portland is people don't realize how good they are at keeping talent in house.
Yeah, our guys we keep. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we would have had Roy for who knows how long, Odin for who knows how long. We had a lot of guys that we never really get to see, but they keep the guys when they're in their prime. It's when
Yep.
their contracts end, whether or not we decide to really bring them back, but it gives us a lot of
Mm-hmm.
control over it. So
Yep.
yeah, I love it. Okay, so
All
before I let
right.
you go, I have one fun question for you. All
Okay.
right, I've been sitting on this one for a couple weeks now since the news
Oof.
came out.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's exciting stuff.
Okay.
All right. So, do you think the Blazers should have let Carmelo Anthony wear number 7, or do you think Roy did enough to keep that number to himself over a legend like Carmelo? Beyond the fact that Roy gave him permission.
Okay. Here's my take. I don't care about numbers. I don't care about what jersey you wear. I couldn't even name anyone's jersey number except for CJ and Dame. So, oh, and then Cantor. I think Cantor wears double zero.
No, Anthony has 00.
Who does? Carmelo does?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. See, that's the thing. I don't even care. So let him wear 7. I don't even care. Like he can wear 7 if he wants to. I have a Brandon Roy jersey. Like it's a classic, right? But if it's not retired, why can't he wear it? There's no unwritten rule. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you
I
can't
thought it
tell a
was
guy he
weird
can't
too.
wear it.
I don't know. I assumed it was a marketing thing. They already sent out all the jerseys. They would have to remake jerseys and hope that they sell. I don't know.
Yes.
But I just thought it was kind of interesting.
It was definitely interesting, and Blazers Twitter was a buzz about it. I think that we romanticized Brandon Roy's career a little bit. I mean, he was amazing. He was a great Blazer. We love him. But if the number's not retired, the dude can wear the number. And I do understand the marketing thing. Like I understand that. Like you have to kind of pick a jersey number and stick with it for the whole year because they can't change the number on the jersey that they're selling. But I'm not upset about it either way, man. Let them wear 7.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, man. We'll get back to this next week. We'll look forward to the Battle of LA's coming up. We're gonna have
Beat
both of
LA.
them.
Come on, just
on the
beat
road.
LA.
Yeah, lots of stuff. We appreciate everybody who's been liking, sharing our posts.
Yeah.
Hope you guys keep that up. We're gonna do a fun little thing when we hit 100 likes, 100 follows. Both numbers have to be at 100. We will be doing a drawing for some Blazers swag. Nothing too big. It's only 100. Chill out, people. But still gonna be something that you're not gonna have to pay for. That's gonna come from yours truly. So if we get to that, continue to share. Tell your friends, like us, follow us. Thanks to Steve on the Twitter for being our first follower. It's pretty exciting. Yes, Steve. I mean, even though we haven't got our Twitter page up and running
I'll
quite
get it
yet,
figured
we're
out.
working on it. Yeah. But yeah, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. We'll continue to do these weekly recaps, talk about some of the things we're seeing as the team gets better.
Yep.
Go Blazers, and look forward to the LA battles.
Go Blazers.
Go Blazers. Thanks, man.
Thanks.